There seems to be, quite a bit of theaters that claim hauntings. They're usually typical ghosts in haunted theaters tend to be reminiscent of people who work in theaters, whether there be stagehands, actors coming back to recite lines, or every once in a while, similar to other haunted spots, tragedies that have befallen, which seems to be, accidents happen in theaters quite a bit. So I guess it's just prime for haunting. Not to jump too into ghost rules fast, but ghosts in haunted theaters are a little different because they're like, it feels like it's a little more like collective, the versus like personal tragedy of a haunted house or like, just like the cemetery ghost, supposedly Ford Theater where Abraham Lincoln was shot is haunted. People see the ghost of Lincoln or the ghost of Mary Todd or John Wilkes Booth.
That's the pathetic jerk.
Yeah, that shot me. Yeah. Yes. So
Sorry.
Also, Booth is claimed to have also haunt a theater in Texas where he was hiding out after the assassination. Supposedly, he's reciting lines of a play he didn't get to perform. That's a tragedy element, but it's also like a collective element. This is something that a lot of people witness, and it's also something that reverberated. So there tends to be this kind of like, some people see like a performer on stage about to recite things. In one instance, like there's a theater in London. It was rebuilt in the 1600s, and then since then there has been like a haunting of the ghost. They call it the Gray Man. He's dressed in like 18th century garb and he walks across the stage. Some people have seen him and then he disappears. Corroborating evidence to this, but supposedly when the theater was after the reconstruction and was getting renovated again, like they found where the ghost typically walks, like in a hidden kind of area, a skeleton, like when it was being rebuilt in like the I think it was like 1870s or something. But this ghost, it doesn't seem like he's an actor necessarily, but just a person of the time, is supposedly good luck. Like if you see him, he will actually, like, the play that you're putting on is supposed to do well. So it's like, so it's weird, like, even though it seems like possibly a skeleton that was found as someone who was murdered and stuck in a wall somewhere, which is
lucky
also
me,
feels like very
skeleton.
very, very play type thing. It's possibly related to this ghost who tends to bring is a good omen. The Phantom of the Opera is obviously a famous story and then stage play about a haunting in the Paris Theater, which is also based on, like, the story was originally based on certain types of events that happened. Like there was an accident in the theater where the pianist was disfigured in a fire, and I think it was a ballerina was died and they were like lovers or something, and it's like supposedly he's the one who haunts the theater, and the point where it wasn't I think the whole chandelier fell, but like one of the counterweights of the chandelier fell and like, people were injured and things. So there's elements of that story that are based on that like thing. So yeah. And then obviously like we get into plays being, supposedly cursed and things. Macbeth, or the theater, the Scottish play, because you can't name it, is supposedly cursed. And the curse goes back to this idea that maybe Shakespeare put in real, witchcraft things into it, and then he was cursed by witches. And at the time, that was also popularized. Like James I, who was the king at the time, was very, very into witchcraft and demonology. Like I can't remember. There's he was like, grew up at the time of the witch trials, in the late 1500s, and so that kind of stuck with him, and he really believed like witches were real. So there was this like already kind of fever, their own version of a satanic panic kind of going on, in England at the time, and there was
before Phil Donahue.
Yeah, there was a demonology book that was published pretty recently in that era when Macbeth had come out, which said basically like all magic, all sorcery, all it is real, and it's all practiced by demons and people who worship demons and stuff. And so there's like, so some of that may be that, but like after the supposed like curse thing, like the first actress who played Lady Macbeth died tragically. There's like, so these kinds of instances around there that go even up to like there was 2 rival Macbeth plays going on in New York at one point in time, and there was supposedly like a riot that broke out. Yeah, there does seem to be, for some reason, a lot of like, I guess makes sense, like ghosts and stuff in theaters, and curses around plays tend to be overly dramatic. You know, to put a point
appropriate.
There's even like more modern versions of this where people like old movie houses where like the projectionist is the ghost, and there's a couple of those in the United States where it seems like, you know, oh, this movie theater is haunted, you know, and it's like, well, that's, you know, it's kind of weird, but it's just like, but that's that we all gather in these places up until, you know, TV and things like that's where you went for entertainment. This is, you know, it's like ancient Greek level, you know, so stuff with like theaters are kind of like, you know, and just to throw a little, you can tag back to some other things. The theater is a liminal space, like reality, you know, like this is where like fantasy and reality mix, and you're supposed to suspend disbelief. They tend to be architecturally, have hidden corridors and things, you know, that are built around it. It's often dark. It's very easy for accidents to happen, especially, you know, like we have to explain why things always keep happening at this theater. It's probably ghosts, you know. So yeah.
It's not just marketing. It's not just people trying to get people to come to the theater to see the ghosts.
Yeah.
This isn't Beetlejuice. Yeah, let's dive into that a little, because it's like, why theaters, right? Like versus like murder scenes and things. Like, of course there's like the high drama, the accident proneness of, you know, raising and moving sets and things like that, and trapdoors and all kinds of things that that are in theaters. There's the background of theaters in the world of traveling theater and theater troops and vaudeville, which is also associated with fortune telling and hypnosis and all that kind of stuff. This weird kind of edge of society, unrespectable jobs. Kind of like everyone wants to be an actor now because they got lots of money. But for most of history,
yeah, it's definitely on a lower.
It's been like a job of ill repute for the most part. And yeah, it's not quite as ill repute as maybe being a straight up witch or sorcerer or something. But yeah, and then it's dramatic people. And there's a thing I was thinking about with this actually. Actually, Macbeth has come up a couple times for me in the last few days. So I'll tell a funny little story, funny maybe for us. I was working at a theater. I was working at the theater in Bristol, the Bristol Riverside Theater, and I was a deck carpenter, the least qualified person that has ever been a deck carpenter. And actually, this was my second go. And we were putting on, God, I forget what show it was. But anyway, and I was talking to a couple of the other stage crew people, us, and there was an actress there, and we were talking about like time travel or fortune telling or something related to prophecy and self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like, you know, like in Macbeth, and then like the one actress goes, you said the Scottish play, and I'm like, what, Macbeth? And she's like, you said it again. I'm like, oh, damn it. And I have a background in theater, so I actually should have known that, and especially enough not to say it a second time right away. But I didn't know there's a ritual. You're supposed to go outside and turn around 3 times and say something and come back in.
You got like sometimes spit depending where you're at, you know, do something like that. There's so get out the threshold and make the curse
all the
go
bad stuff that's happened to you guys since then. That was a long time ago. This is like you can encounter everything since 2012 or something like that. You know, you can blame it on that because you know me. But yeah, I apparently that wasn't good. I think it's weird, contained to the play though. I think it's just that.
Yeah, I think you have to be putting it on to, you know, to like, I think like
you're allowed to say you're allowed to say it if you're putting on Macbeth. You're not allowed to say it if you're putting on other plays. And I think if you're outside of a theater, you can say Macbeth as much as you want.
Yeah.
So how strict is that? Do you have any idea? It's like when you are preparing, like, day one, when you are just starting to create scenes, when you're
Mhm.
just starting at that very, very beginning, or
You
are you
can,
allowed to say it, or is it more?
if you're in the midst of any production and you're in a theater that you're putting on that production, presumably, you could go to another theater and say it just to
Yeah.
sabotage another team.
What about if you are in
Yeah, but then you might get
between?
cursed, like something might
But
fall away.
it follows you back.
Yeah. You don't know how it works. It's like,
Curse mechanics.
Say the production ends, but you haven't decided on the next one. Are you allowed to say Macbeth at that point?
well, if you say it, I think at that point you probably have to now put it on, right? Now it's like that. You're like, well, now we're stuck. Thanks.
Yeah.
Way to
For
go,
me to make you the
Daisy.
suggestion, and
That's
then
how you
everyone.
that's how you tilt things in that favor. Or if you might not be hired back next season as a deck carpenter because it turns out you weren't qualified the first 2 seasons, you can tell them, you can be like, I'll say it. I'm gonna say it. It's like
Well,
the
that's
night you say knee or something.
Yeah, I do like how there's like there's this. I tried to track this down because I thought it was an interesting idea, but like it seems like the further I looked into it, the more it was just coincidentally related. But like there was this idea that like especially back in like early, I'll say not early theater days because that'd be like Greece, but like early like days of like theater stage plays. We have like rigging and stagehands and that kind of stuff.
Ah, yeah.
And a lot of the there was this idea that like, oh well, basically sailors when they would come into port, they go and they work in theaters as like riggers in the theater, and so there's this idea of like, well, sailors are really superstitious and thespians are really superstitious. And it's there's this like maybe there's a link up there, and like someone had made this idea, but as I tried to track it down, it turns out it was just like, well, it's just that they use the same equipment and the terminology so happens at the time then happens to be the same. They use the same kind of pulley systems, the same kind of thing. But it's like, but it wasn't. But there wasn't. I mean, I'm sure there might have been a few people who maybe worked both things, but it didn't seem like it was actually a crossover. And I was like, well, that could explain some of the weird, because there's a lot of superstition around, sailing, like especially, in that, age of exploration, colonial era, kind of thing. And there's a lot of superstition about theaters, it's like in this heightened, kind of like, idea. It's like maybe there's a link up there, but but unfortunately there doesn't seem to be like more than just like just shared. It's both kind of weird, and they're very tight knit groups that spend a lot of time together. It's a.
And you know what? They spend time hanging out in liminal spaces.
A lot of time
Is there a
hanging out.
liminal space more liminal than the damn ocean?
Not just like time hanging out together, but like there's a lot of time where it's time is weirder for you than everyone else. Like you spend most of your time like at night doing all this stuff, like, and then like when you're in the day, you're kind of like mucking about, and like on a ship, you might be on like night versus day, like you're it's like everything's like kind of odd, time wise from the rest of like the world too, like, and how it operates,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's like if you're depending what kind of show you're working, you might be like, well, you start at like lunchtime and then you go to like 11 at night, and you're like weird, and you're never like you're like who do you see at those points, like earlier in the day no one's around and you're probably sleeping, and then late at night when you're wrapping up, it's like most people are done. They went to see the play, they're going home, you're now like
Yeah.
breaking things down, and
You've got a
stuff.
weird relationship to society too. If you're a sailor or if you're a thespian, or yeah. Yeah, and one thing I thought about is this notion that there's a similarity when it comes to, like, we talked about like slumber party games. There's this thing about acting as if, and the power of acting as if something is the case. And there are several layers to this. So first, actually, if you act as if you have a particular emotion, you can actually cause the emotion to happen. Like if you adopt the physiology of feeling like very sad and very downtrodden, you can actually start to feel that way pretty quickly. If you adopt the physiology of being very like happy and energetic, you can actually start to feel that way pretty quickly, because it's this thing called facial feedback hypothesis, the idea that emotions can kind of be caused in reverse. to the physiology that is associated with them. There's another thing, and it's so this notion of acting as if, it's kind of like it'll be like state not sta- like sales folks might get in a confident state before they go into a thing. It's like you bring this kind of energy to it to get something done. But it's also like it's one of those things about like little kids can get like really into things like light as a feather, stiff as a board, or like Bloody Mary, or Ouija boards and things like that. Think about the idea of like high emotion as maybe being associated with what we might call paranormal events, and you know, so and then you've got the high emotion of the stage show, and like speaking as someone that's done theater acting, you can get like very immersed and engaged in what's going on the stage. Like that's but presumably the same with like film, which is its own topic with this stuff. But getting immersed in it to the point that it's like really real or seems really real. Well, that's like very similar to what happens in magic. Everything reminds me of magic. You could be talking about a cheese sandwich, and I'm going to start. That reminds me.
When you grill this cheese and the cheese melts and the bread toasts,
like
it's
magic.
almost like
Transformation like alchemy. That reminds me of magic. But yeah, so but the idea of you go in and you say things like, "I am Moses" or "I am Solomon." You claim to be these things, and you're in this thing, and you're in the dark, and you're saying all this stuff, and it gets to. Even if you didn't, you're wearing a paper crown, but you know, like a Burger King crown, you know, but it's like, but it kind of doesn't matter after a minute because it starts to have that seemingness to it. Like we talked about the idea of like, yeah, like, but the boogeyman, like, do you leave the closet door open? And like, it kind of doesn't matter what you say when you're there. It might just seem more, I'm just on, you know, caution. You know, it's like you just, what do you mean caution? But what do you do when you're really there? Like, what's it like when you're really in the dark theater? What's it like when you're the security guard on night shift at the mall that's supposedly haunted? It doesn't matter what you say when your friends are around. It's what matters when you say when you're in the situation. Sometimes you're gonna act as if. Can that acting as if and accepting something as a certain level of reality transcend the rational, the rules? As I said in liminal spaces, when you suspend the
Yeah.
rules.
Interesting thing when you're saying about like film versus like plays, and even like when we talk about like other cursed theaters that are related to film, it's like the theater you're watching it in. It's like, oh, it's a projectionist who died or something. It's like there's like at least with film, like a lot of film is very non-linear. And yes, you have actors who, you know, engage in like more like I'm going to get into character and stay in character the whole time we're making the film. But you might like you're going to film a scene like 17 times from like 5 different angles, or unless you're like have a very particular director who knows how like this shot they're all set up, everything, we know exactly what's going to happen. Or you're going to be like on a green screen and you might say something, and yeah, it doesn't mean like the different scenes won't have like impact, but it's, you know, you could be filming the end of the movie and then filming the beginning of the movie. It's not linear, where like the play is like immersive, especially I imagine like from like an acting standpoint, you know, because like you have to you have to be, you know, you're in character, you're doing this whole thing the whole time, you know, and it's like, especially if you're someone who's like more of a lead and you're on stage the entire time. So you're like pretending, you know, essentially play acting, you know, the entire the entire time, not just in these snippets. Because it seems like with like when you have like movies that seem to be cursed or tragic, it's usually stuff that's like failures around it, you know, like things like breaking and stuff like that. It's not like like the whole notion of this play it's just like, oh, like everything about doing this is just falling apart, you know, like from like the really tragic things of like an actor passing away, or like other stuff like just like special effects that just are just out of whack or something, you know, like not that Jaws was cursed or something, but like a lot of decisions around it made because like it was constant failures, like trying to film on open waters, which not many people had done at the time, like special effects that just weren't working right, things like it's just like and so like everything just but that's like kind of how that stuff happens. And there might be like mythology built around that, but it's like it's not quite but you're not getting the same like this is all, but when you're watching a movie, you get all that. Theater does seem like it's much more like you're saying, like this liminal space of like a slumber party, like the state of imagination. It's like, but because you as the audience have to really, you're there, like you're part of it. Like you're not just like, waiting. It's like versus a film, like there's people there doing stuff. I mean, like even like really good, like black, box theater can be like effective and weird, and there aren't many props and there aren't many things. It's like because you're like everyone's got to imagine what's going on, and you have to create this thing, in this space, like basically develop, like, it's almost like I think of like talking about like weird things games kids play, like the floor is lava, and when you get really into it, like you imagine the floor is lava and you can, it gets it's like, well, yeah, but it's all like what's happening. Oh, you're standing on like sofas and there's pillows and stuff, but it's like, but it's like and kind of plays are kind of like that.
And like that with movies, it's a little less, and increasingly so, a little less immersive. Like, if you think about, I will, I'm sure get into this at some point, like the idea of like a movie like Poltergeist, and you're like talking about early 80s. So it's still like sets and things like that. It's less so that now. I saw an interview at some point with Macaulay Culkin, and he was saying that he didn't actually really know what Home Alone was about. Like, it's not like they read the whole script. It's like they came in and said, "Okay, say these things, say it like this," because it's not like it was, well, we're going to shoot the beginning of the movie, then we're going to shoot the next scene that happens in the movie. It's like, no, we're going to shoot all the scenes that happen on a given set with different people that have to be here because we don't want to have to pay them for the day otherwise, and. It's whereas like that with theater, you're generally all there, and a lot of times there's also drama between the people in the production. You might be sleeping with each other. You might be, you might not like each other. You might be competitors from previous things. It's a small world, in that regard. And like, and you're up at night. You're keeping weird hours. That's going to mess with your head a little. A lot of times. There are different rules around things like substance use and things like that. You kind of follow different rules than a lot of society, and that's still true with the Hollywood folk. But yeah, it reminds me actually winding back and pretending as if once again, it reminds me of a different kind of troupe than vaudeville, and that's Commedia dell'arte. And so there were traveling troops, and you'd have these stock characters, like the Zanny, and that was kind of a clumsy, big, and you'd wear masks, theater masks, usually like leather or something like that. And the Zanny was this bumbly character, or like Pantalone, or like a miserly kind of old man, and these stock characters. And a lot of the theater, you'd have these things called Lazzis, which are like a little bit they would do, but a lot of it was improvised otherwise. And so you really learned to like feel into that character. And I was taking a course on Commedia dell'arte, and we traveled around and did shows to get like a feel for what that was like. And it's a lot of the exercises we were doing were like putting on the mask and seeing what the mask is like. And it's like, well, this is a mask that's been worn by people throughout time, and there are ways that this kind of plugs together, And so Bill, you're saying about how like the theater ghosts or the hauntings tend to be like more, it's appropriate, it's ensemble. It's a collective haunting. We team up together, and this idea of like you've got the almost like there's like this like energy that draws on the drama, the heavy drama of the theater, and uses that to, I don't know, to fund phenomena. To fund an apparition or whatever, and it's kind of interesting in that regard, and these like persistent ghosts in places that they're probably isn't really anything to attribute it to besides that it's a high school and it's a really dramatic place. All high schools are dramatic places.
I think that's interesting. So, kind of talk about high school and stuff made me think of this. So, yeah, and you said this, I think you said this directly, actually. People tend to think that high energy can get repackaged as paranormal phenomenon.
Yeah.
And, you hear that with, poltergeist activity as well, where it typically happens with teenagers or something like that. They have this high energy, a lot of changes going on, a lot of hormones happening. So it's interesting, why it tends to happen, assuming that is the case, that it happens at some places and not others. So for instance, you would think if this, if you subscribe to this theory that it's this energy that is repackaged and creates this paranormal events, why isn't there consistency with it? Why don't you see it, like you said, in all high schools? Why don't you see it in all theaters? Why don't you see it in all, I don't know, churches or something like that? It's just interesting that it seems to be like, the theory is there and the theory seems, I guess, kind of sound, I guess, but it's just interesting. It's still like, this place, but not that place. It's interesting.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, like, some folks would say it's kind of like there might, okay, so if it's energy, like not as a metaphor, but as actual energy, like there are some people that'll say, oh, well, ghosts will make it colder because they're taking the heat energy to use for something. So it's like it's actual like measurable changes in an environment that is being used versus the energy of being angry. What is that? We think, well, there's an energy to it. You can even you might come into a room that an argument has taken place in, you can kind of the expression, your air so thick you could cut it with a knife, or that kind of thing. It's like, or are you just picking up on the nonverbal signals of the people in there that were just having an argument and they're being nice now because you're a guest? And it's like, well, or is there like an energy, in a non-metaphorical sense? Is it the, I've heard, this is an interesting one, the idea that the actual materials that something is made of might be able to store, I'll just call it psychic events, better than other materials. Like the idea,
not like reliquary stuff, but like getting into close to that kind of thing.
Like this place is made of stone.
A certain type of stone
has better. It's like a battery, like a memory battery kind of thing. Like it has the ability to like save it.
So this is interesting. So you're talking specifically limestone. So there's the limestone theory, or the limestone tape theory, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's it.
And when I first discovered this, I was like, this is awesome. How does this work? And like, I started to like try to do some research on it and everything. And then I discovered it's just a theory. It has not been proven, at least as far as I could tell. So it's like, oh, well, then that.
I'll say, hypothesis, I guess. It's not a theory yet.
Even if it's called a theory. But not technically a theory. Yeah, not by scientific definition.
Well, I mean, there is the case where it's like in going by, we probably just need to do a whole just general ghost idea of rules. Like, why do ghosts appear? Like, we may put a pin in that and we'll come back to just general ghosts at some point, generally. But it's like, because there's, but like some of these theater things do seem to be like at least associated, like some of it with tragic events or with things like that, like here's an actor specifically who worked here, this is a person who was here all the time, doing stuff, or somebody died here, like that guy was like in England, apparently the person walled up in the wall, might have been that ghost, so there is still that like ghost rules of like, well, it's somebody very, very associated with the place that haunts. It's not usually just like, oh yeah, it's just a nobody, like, a ghost. Like he's just a random person that showed up one night and popped in here for a show, and then no, it's always like this person had a box seat for their entire life, and then they died, and like sometimes you see them up in the balcony or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
or it's like they were like a crew member, like someone who worked here forever. It's
Right.
like that. It's usually not just like random. It's like, or it's like like Judy Garland or somebody, because this is a theater she performed in like all the time, and now like some people
Yeah.
see her on stage. It's like usually like that kind of like haunting is still specific to like the presence of or associated with the presence of
Well,
something
let's go back a
important or
second
tragic.
to earlier you're talking about I think it was the gray ghost, I think is
Hmm.
what you said. And I think this was the guy that they also found bones in the
Yeah.
theater. Is that okay?
The
So
Gray Man.
going back to the burial grounds episode, there was another instance he talked about like a house, I think, and they found the bones. Once a person was given the proper burial, the sightings stopped, I think you
Right.
said. Do you know, did the sightings of the gray man or the gray ghost, did that stop after they discovered those bones? Were those bones removed? Do you know anything about that?
I imagine they were removed. And again, like this is like the one thing about this is it's like it's really hard to corroborate because this happened in like when they found it like they happened. It was like 18 whatever like
You
70
did say
something.
that. That's right.
And so in the case and it doesn't seem to be the case because people still talk about this haunting. So it's like
Yeah.
like there's like I think it was I'm trying to I'd have to like pull back in the research, but I think there was also one that was like weird that was kind of like I think it's in Chicago, and it was a theater that like caught fire, and the theater's not there anymore, or there's another theater nearby, but the like area where it was it seems to be haunted, or something like that, from people that died in a
Yeah.
fire or something like that. But then again, that's is that a haunted theater? Is that just like your normal hauntings? I mean, like when we get
Yeah. Is it a haunted theater still if the theater itself is gone?
yeah, yeah. But it's but even that, like with the movie theater ones, and like a lot of the hauntings seem to be projectionists. It's like, well, that's the people that are there all the time. Of course, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's got to be and you don't like the projectionist. How often is people even up there? You can't even see the person up there.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, and that's like it's almost like you've got these different types of ghosts. Again, we'll have to go into this taxonomy of ghosts or
ghost
whatever.
rules.
You've got ghosts that you could call them employed and unemployed. You've got ones that are there to do something, like poltergeisty types, which is I muddied the waters already. And then you've got ones that are like recordings that are just kind of like, no, it's just something going on that happened before. They don't seem to interact with people at all. They're just doing their thing. So it's like, is it like the kind that interact and the kind that don't? And the kind that seem to have psychokinetic phenomena associated and the ones that don't? And like, are they all the same thing? I don't think they are. I think they indicate how little we know about the world we live in. So they're the same thing in that regard. But I don't think, like, I think a poltergeist is different than potentially than a malevolent entity, discarnate entity in a place versus a replaying historical event that occurred in a place. But do they use the same kind of? I hate to say physics because it goes against what I said previously in another episode when I said like I don't really know that it's going to just be like everything has to get boiled down to this sciencey thing. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, it does seem to be like when you're talking about just the perspective from like at least the story standpoints, that the plays tend to be like, and theater things tend to be of that like episodic, like the thing will happen, it'll be repeated, you'll often see this ghost behind the stage or on the stage or reciting lines or somebody sitting in a particular seat all the time. It's like whatever
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So it does seem to be in that like it's not like interactive, except for when like you get people like that are like, oh, I'm gonna go ghost adventure, and like I heard them say, get out, or I hate you, like things I mean, maybe like, and even like the kind of like not taking into account the like the story, the Phantom of the Opera, but like the kind of like 4 or 5 events that like got conglomerate into that. You know, it's like people say they might hear like the piano. So it does seem to be like what you're saying, like this kind of recorded the phenomenon or something like that, or the
Yeah.
reported phenomenon is that recorded phenomenon. That was a weird sentence. Okay. All right, someone else take over.
Danny C, you look like you've got something to say. I always have
Yes.
something to say.
I always have something to say. Whether or not it's worth saying is a whole other
I
thing.
understand that too.
That's the purpose of this podcast.
but it's
Agree?
So going back to the stone tape theory, the concept is very interesting because in theory it's like, think about magnetic tape. Okay, now admittedly with my background, you think I actually have more knowledge on how that process actually works at like the mechanical level, I guess, but I really don't. I know essentially, electricity changes the charge, changes from positive to negative, and that's how it essentially records it, and then it reads it back and plays it back out, something along those lines. But the concept, if you think about that, you have at the simplest level, it's a piece of material that's electromagnetically charged, that is then replays the sequence of charges from a previous state. So it's kind of interesting, the world around us is completely charged. Like the atoms around us are completely charged. So in theory, you could say that anything could become a recorder. The air around us could be a recorder. Limestone could be a recorder. So it's just kind of interesting from a more of a physics perspective how something like that could work.
Right. Yeah, and if you think about like if you going back to the metaphor of psychic energy, a lot of emotion being ramped up in a given place or whatever, like that itself as a recorder. But also the weird feeling of the liminal space, does it do something to our consciousness that allows us to perceive those things? So is it not the space like just filled of, these atoms, is it something about that space does something to the mind that gets it fires up its it fires up its psychic senses in the same way that like wandering past the edge of the campfire might alert the brains of our ancestors in the ancient past, to put all the senses on, and so it's kind of like when you're looking at these liminal spaces and if there's like a discomfort that comes from it, and then being able to perceive what's going on there, on some other level. Like I've thought this before about Loch Ness. Like, what if it's not that there's a creature living in Loch Ness that's hanging out and shows up now and then? The Loch Ness monster. What if it's that staring across this gray, creepy thing, it wigs out the mind a bit. And maybe for some people, it wiggles time. Like they can see things that happened in the past. And it's not that like plesiosaurs were very dramatic. They had a lot of drama in their lives. And maybe it's not that then. Maybe it's not just the drama. Yeah, what do you know about plesiosaurs?
What do you know about? Let me tell you. Yeah.
I'm expert. But yeah, what so is it then the drama of the of looking across this liminal space and the weird feeling of uncertainty that it gives that fires up the psychic senses, and now you can see a dinosaur. I don't know, but it's an interesting idea of like if it's not the place, but the effect the place has on our consciousness for some reason. Yeah.
Well, even just in that like sense of the like it's an imagination space. It's a space made to imagine things. Like you said, this is like we're the audience. We have to imagine that this is like this isn't a castle. We know it's not real. It's not like it doesn't have like this level of special effects. Like it's like we know this person is like not going to like kill this person. We know these things aren't real, but like we got to imagine it. And then as the actors, like you also have to like kind of embody. You're trying to make these roles and stuff like that. It does seem like too, like the plays that tend to be like the ones that have like issues, also tend to revolve around, things that have like witches in them and ghosts and murders and it's often like that, like like even like sometimes like the Crucible, like things happen, it's like, well, that's not like a modern ish play. Why is that except for maybe something like Spider-Man Turn Out the Dark, but I think that was just like engineered poor. It's like where people are, where it's like, so, but it's like, it's just like that kind of idea. It's like the imagination runs away with you, kind of thing. So
I'd be very curious to see actually data on different plays and comparing them to other plays and the tragedies that go with it. So it's so much easier to build into the story behind, say, Macbeth. If something is going wrong, it's like, oh, well, it's about witches, or if like bad stuff is happening with the Crucible, oh, well, it's about
witches.
Witches. It's so
It's a lot about witches.
It's so easy to say that, but if you're having a play and it's about like insert random play here that's about something positive and fun and uplifting, did the same number of bad things happen to those as on the average, and the evil plays are just an easy scapegoat? I'd be very curious to see the data on that.
Yeah, it's like, but the thing is, like, that's trying to track down like even something simple, it's like in leading up to this, like from just some of the stuff I knew, and then like some of the stuff I started tracking down, like, are theaters really like more haunted than other places? And it's like you can't figure it out, because it's like, well, I guess you could take like all the places that people say are haunted, and it's like, well, no, then it's not, because like there's a lot of haunted houses or haunted whatever. But it's like, but the type of hauntings for theaters are much more unique than, say, the hauntings in like a house typically, or something like that, or like, it's like, or a haunted, like, say, battleground, or it's like, but it's just like, no, it doesn't really seem to be, or like, again, no one's like compiled this kind of data, and probably just because a lot of this stuff is just so hearsay. And like, I think Chris alluded to earlier, money making, maybe. Like, it's it's cool to have a haunted place in your town. If you were going to see like a play and knew it was spooky, would it be cooler to see it in a haunted theater, supposedly? Would that also add into the thing, like, hey, you know what? You're seeing this spooky play, but like, guess what? Like, the bathroom in this theater is haunted. Sometimes.
Could it be the lobby? The bathrooms are already kind of
no. It has to be the bathroom. Like, there'll only one of them, and it's the one that the lights don't work real well in. So when like intermission, you go and you get your glass of wine, and like, oh, I really got to use the bathroom. Like, you're already ramped up because it was like whatever scary. It's like, ooh, like. Would that be more fun too, to see a like haunted, like a scary play in a haunted theater? I don't know.
See, now this makes me think. I'm all about like data. It's so fascinating. So, and Bill, I think there's something what you're saying about that. You're kind of like what we talked about with the Ouija board. You're priming the pump, kind of, so to speak. Like, this playhouse is haunted. We're going to see this play about a ghost or whatever. It's all adding to it. And I would be very curious, on the average, do those plays get better reviews? Are people already like primed and they're like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, haunted place, haunted play. This is going to be great. And people ask me about it. Oh, it was a great play. It was awesome. I'll go back and like, I'd be very curious on the average how well they quote unquote perform.
Regardless of whether it's haunted or not, let's just say like stuff starts happening, like to the actors or to the thing, like, oh no, like something goes awry, right? And it's like, like, oh, like my sword breaks. Like, I think that happened at one of the like the Scottish play events, where it's like, where someone's sword broke and like flung onto the audience, and it caused someone in the audience to like panic and have a heart attack or something, like things like that. Like, if stuff like that starts happening, is it like, would that be even more like beneficial to the play itself, like in a weird sense? Like, would you be more likely to like be like, well, basically this play is filled with technical failures, or would you be like, oh no, it's probably because it is really scary, it is really haunted? No, no, just it's just kind of a fun idea anyway.
Somewhere between a Shakespeare play and a Guar concert, just kind
Yeah.
of. So here's a funny thing, like with the Crucible, um, talking about like acting as if, there's that it's not considered to be cursed in the same way that Macbeth is considered to be cursed. So it doesn't have the same lore around it. However, there have been a lot of like anecdotal things about people who played Mary Warren. Is she the main girl that
I should
starts
remember.
the
I
whole
was
thing?
in the Crucible, so I should have some
Yeah.
idea.
So people that played that role being like very like drained and stuff from playing it. They found like it was a very intense role to play. And actually on more than one occasion, like the because remember, you've got these kids that are playing into okay, so you've got the scenario of the Crucible and all these accusations of witchcraft, and then the kids start playing into it within the play, within the world that the play is representing. But then you've got actors representing the playing these kids playing this act that's going on. So you've got this weird double layer thing, and that a lot of the times it seems that it comes up so spooky, and they get so into it that members of the audience are a little worried that maybe some of these kids really did faint. And so I've heard that from a couple different things now, and it's like, okay, these are still anecdotal tales, but it's like there are these roles that people step into that seem to produce an outsized burden on the performer. And now, I mean, jumping over to film, we could talk about like the idea of like the Joker, and things like that, and the lore around that. And when you're playing these roles, what does it do to you? And is it just that you're taking your okay? One thing is like, well, you're taking your brain to this place that's really intense, and you're really in it, you know. And this character's like really weird. So to like wrap your head around that character, you have to go places maybe that aren't the best for your psyche. Um, Another one is that there's something about fictional characters, like these sort of embodied instances of these fictional characters, that itself, going back to Commedia dell'arte and I'm Solomon with my Burger King crown, like
Don't say that again because they did not sponsor. So yeah,
that's right. You had your chance. You had your chance.
they said no.
Wanted
So
those chicken fries, and
Um, yeah. So the acting as if thing. I was going somewhere. I got distracted by the promise of chicken fries. When you're plugging in to a character who has a presumed history, does that make a difference? Does that when it comes to these? I mean, Macbeth didn't though, right? So, but witches were believed to be real by a lot of people.
yeah, I think well,
So
I think Macbeth is based on like a loose historical kind of deal.
okay.
I mean, it's not the witches part, but
That was real. I'd be curious, like, I wonder if there's anything that's really pushing the boundaries on it. Like, is there anything that's all right? So this was alleged to contain real witchcraft, right? That's the idea.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like it to me. I want someone to push the envelope on it. I always have these ideas and then I don't do them. Someone else with more talent at this kind of thing. To push the envelope on doing some kind of like a seance play, and just see what happens. Make people sign waivers. That will actually generate more revenue. If you have them sign a waiver, and from a hypnotist perspective, you'll probably actually improve the performance because they've committed to this idea. Cognitive dissonance will get them farther into it. Someone do it, or I'll do it.
for the record, I would 100% go to see that.
I would too.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we should do it. Maybe we should do a Kickstarter. Need insurance.
Yeah, I mean, they are doing a lot more like immersive like types of theater experiences, like uh like so you're Phantom of the Opera. There's a new version of Phantom of the Opera that's like a bunch of like you like it's in like an entire building and you're going through that and it's like you're like immersed in the play. I remember also hearing about there's this uh forget where it's in California. I'm trying to think if it's in San Diego. But there was like and I'm sure there's other versions of this, but it was like, it's like a speakeasy, right? And you go in and it's like a period type speakeasy. It has a bar, game room, all that stuff. And you can just like hang out the bar. But there's other people and there are actors, and you can like, as you go around, there's different things happening in the course of the thing. Like, so you could go into a room and there might be like a two-way mirror and you're seeing people like have an argument about a thing, or like, so there's this kind of like, you can kind of also decide your level of like involvement in the various storylines that are going on in it, like, and stuff like that. So it's almost like, it's kind of like not quite being like in a, like the murder mystery thing where you're like a character and you're playing the character and you're doing a thing. It's like you're just like a person coming to this place and the stuff is going on around you, just like in real life, but it's like more hyped up and dramatic and period setting. So like, so I guess you can like have that kind of weird, like
Interesting.
overly immersive kind of ideas in these things, so but it's just like these, so that might make it even more strange. I'm sure people have done the seances in theaters. I imagine that's a pretty popular place to go do it, so it's just
bring it back.
Drop a line if you're doing a seance in a theater, like send it our way.
Bob, I thought you meant like an actual like production, like the production is person doing a seance.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. That is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I would watch that. I would go to that. That'd be fun.
Yeah. And like just like blurring the lines.
Yep.
Well, you see, here's what would be fun though, because so they're going on like it's the production, and like something happens, and an actor like acts like it's surprising, like that wasn't expected. But is that them acting like it surprised them and it wasn't expected, or did they really just get surprised and it wasn't expected, and then like there's a feedback loop, I think you'd wind up causing haunting. I think you'd wind up causing haunting phenomena.
Theories about haunting.
I would also propose that the actors also have to sign some kind of NDA where it's like they're not allowed to talk about what actually happened, whether it was real or not.
Yeah.
No, just tell them to talk about it as if it's real. Like,
or you have somebody break the NDA. And then there's like a court proceeding, and you don't know if the court proceeding is real or not, or whether it's just further part of this elaborate theatrical. I mean, is it a hoax at that point, or is it just art?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's like, that isn't. What are we talking about?
Because it's answered about so many things.
Should we get into some rating context of this kind of thing? Should we just do this?
Yeah,
I guess I can.
Let's do it.
All right. So, okay, haunted theaters. I think the idea is cool. What I like about like seemingly, except for like maybe the Abraham Lincoln thing or whatever, but like a lot of these theater ghost things tend to not be like really like malevolent, or I mean, yes, it might be tragic figures or things like that, but like in a sense, like I don't know, if I was an actor, I died tragically and I'm still acting like as a ghost, I don't know, like that bad. It doesn't seem like, it's like that kind of thing, or like the gray man, like it's a good omen, which is like kind of rare for hauntings. I think
for omens.
Yeah, it's like so. I think theaters themselves, like they're kind of spooky, but like I kind of like, that's the kind of place where it's like I don't mind. I think even if I was a little like freaked out being there by myself at night, I think I've been at other places that are more spooky at night by myself, like an empty church or like weird things like that. Like that tend to be like on the borderline, like more like kind of creepier type of things, it's or like just like, but it's but the theater doesn't seem like it freaks me out. I think it's kind of a cool space, so I wouldn't, and considering you spend most of the time there in the dark anytime you go there, it's you're already kind of acclimated to that. I kind of feel like the places that if I was like there by myself, now if I saw a ghost, yeah, would I probably be a little freaked? Sure, but I don't think I'm like particularly scared of it. And seemingly, since the ghosts tend to be, you know, these kind of recording kind of things, they're not gonna get you. They're not gonna. It's not something in your closet that's gonna grab you at night or something. You know, it's like the rules they tend to follow tend to be pretty benign. So I'm gonna give it like I'm gonna give it one monster because I don't think it's like I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, and it doesn't seem to be that bad. And if anything, it actually might be cool. Like you know, it's like we've said, like it's like so yeah. So that's my rating on that.
Right on. Right on. I guess I'll hop in next. I think it's kind of scary. I'd give it more than a one. Um, I've happened to have jobs where I'm like working late in theaters, or like I worked at a church once that you're locking it up and it's all dark except for the offering candle things and stuff. So like I've got like a visceral feel of what it's like to be in those places. I'd say it depends if I'm with other people. If I'm 100% alone, except for the ghost, I'd give the actual experience there probably like a three or a four. Even though I'd like it to happen, it would scare the hell out of me. I'd run like yeah, no, I think that would freak me out. I don't know. I think just all the combined things we talked about with theaters and things, and just the feel of those places, and they already feel a little weird to me. Maybe for this reason, my antennae are already out. You know, with other people, what did I give it the first time? A three?
Yeah, so it's about three or four. You weren't sure.
Yeah, so I'd say maybe like maybe more like a two, one or a two with other people. Like the idea of like we're gonna go to the third floor of the school and see if we can find the ghost. Like at this point, I think I'd be down for that. I don't know what I'm doing in that school, but
Yeah.
we broke into some high schools, mid 40s. Let's see if there's ghosting. Yeah, so yeah, but I'd say so. It depends. I'd give it a solid. It depends, but probably like a three or a four if I'm by myself, and I'll leave it there. What do you think there, you leftover voter?
It's interesting. I was trying to remember how we voted on liminal spaces because I find myself, from my memory, which doesn't really say much, but I think I'm voting kind of in line with what I said on liminal spaces. So I find the idea. So I've also worked in theaters, running sound and being there after hours, shutting everything down and everything, locking up and whatever, or they're early before anyone else is there and opening up. And I find that atmosphere kind of peaceful. There's something just about it to me. It's really cool, like this vast open space that's dark. There's just something kind of cool about it. I enjoy it, and it's something. And I gotta say, when I was in the theater, I was always on the lookout for something just in case because I thought it'd be really cool. Nothing ever happened. So, and I think I said with liminal spaces, I'd be more scared of encountering real people than like something that is non-physical.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with a space like a theater. I would be more concerned about, or even, going in, to a haunted school or something like that, up to the third floor, like you said, Baba. But I'd be more concerned with something across someone that is non-physical rather than something that is, something across something that is physical rather than non-physical. So I think if I encountered like a ghost phantom, whatever, I think it'd be really, really cool. Regardless of what happened, I think it'd be cool. So, yeah. Bill, kind of like what you said, I'm going to rate this a lowly one. I think it'd be really cool, but I don't think there's really anything scary about it for me.
I think it's funny where we fall on all these things. It's great. That's great. Cool. Well, somebody do that seance play. Someone do that.
And if you do it, put it in the comments so you know where to go. I will fly to see this. Tell me where it is.
Yeah.
So real quick, on the topic, did anyone, any of you guys working in theater, school, anything like that, that was allegedly haunted ever have an encounter? And double points if someone else was there and witnessed it too.
No, but I can talk on this a little bit. Like, so my grade school / high school was fairly old from American standards, going there. So it's like supposedly the one floor, like, so when I was there, it was about like 160 or so years old, so it's the one building, that is pretty old, like Civil War era, and the upper floor was where like people stayed, and things like that. And supposedly that one floor was haunted, where the room that I used for like I had independent art study, kind of thing. And so that was like, and other people said, oh, things happen there, like, especially in that room or things like that. And like, I don't know. I actually liked being up there, like, because I'd go up there, no one's around. This one, like the room was fairly well lit, like pretty sunny. It was like nice. I like never had a problem. The dark room for photography was also up there because we did like actual, physical media photography, not just digital. So we had to have a dark room and load our film and develop it and all that stuff. It's like I never had a problem being in there, and you had to be in there in the dark. It was not a thing in this supposedly spooky thing. The thing that probably freaked me out the most is that, looking back on it, parts of that building were structurally not the best at that time. I'm sure now they've done a lot of improvements. So there was definitely like the floor that was above our the really upper floor. You weren't even allowed up there; it was boarded off. And like you could probably, if you did go up there, there's a good chance, like, I don't know, you could put your foot through the floor or something. It's
how many monsters do you give the state of the construction there?
Yeah, I give that a lot of monsters. Yeah.
More than the floor could bear.
Yeah, and there's like, but other people have said, oh, it's like spooky on these creepy, and like, I don't know. I had the opposite thing, unless it's just like I have an anti-ghost or something, and they're like, well, we're just gonna leave this guy alone. We're not gonna mess with. He's got haunted enough stuff going on. He doesn't need our intervention. I don't know. So for me, like that would be the closest to a place that I was in a lot, like spent like, over many days, over many years in those spaces, and never had an issue. And other people said they saw stuff. So like, if I was going to do it, that was the spot. I'm sure there's other places I've been in that were supposedly haunted, but like, I don't know, never had an issue. Yeah.
What about you? Theaters, schools that are allegedly haunted, anything?
No, I'm the person that's like so interested in ghosts, and like they never show up for me. It's I give it a go. Me and Sharon want to go and do like some haunted site visits to see. Cause it's no theater ghosts, no church ghosts, or cemetery ghosts to date. In the fall of 2025. Sorry to burst the illusion for any of you that think this is happening a different time, but yeah. So no ghosts, no theater ghosts, no church ghosts, no high school ghosts for me yet. What about you? You asked the question. Do you have a secret?
No, unfortunately. Kind of like you. I want to go somewhere though. But I gotta find a place first.
Well,
apparently in the town near me, they just opened a ghost museum thing. So I'm gonna have to. That's about regional haunting. So I think I'm gonna go check that out at some point.
We might have to all show up in the same physical location. I want to get to see that I'm the shortest, even though I'm like I seem the biggest because I keep creeping up on the camera.
By the time this episode drops, it'll be pretty close to Christmas, and to give some minor spoiler away. The episode after this is going to require quite a big stocking.